All right, welcome. As we continue our study on being salt and light, Jesus said in the Sermon on the Mount, you are the salt of the earth, you are the light of the world. And so we've been covering a number of topics. This week we're going to talk about the arts, being salt and light, Christian view of faith and the arts. And we've got a couple of three panelists for us in this discussion. I think it's going to be good. Next week we're going to be talking about the aging population. And we've got Ruth Engbers and Brent Janke, and we'll probably have one more person who are going to kind of lead us through that one. And then in 2 weeks, we're going to have, as part of the Salt and Light study, we'll focus on education. And we've got a lineup of speakers and panelists for that. So appreciate you coming. Today we're going to talk about the arts. And look, I am probably not the best person to lecture people about the arts. I do not have an artistic bone in my body, even though my great-grandfather was a tremendous artist. I have some of his work. I have a self-portrait he did of himself, folk art, on a piece of tin. You'd think it was a photograph. It's so good. And then his son, my grandfather, was one of the top commercial artists in the country. He had ads hand-drawn in the Chicago Tribune every weekend for 20 years. He was the primary commercial artist for John M. Smith's Furniture. He had his own studio downtown Chicago, but that was his biggest account. But I have a lot of his work as well. I didn't get any of that. My sister got it all. She can sit down and draw you, look at you, draw. It's beautiful. I can't even draw stick people. I am not good, and I do play the guitar, but after 40 years, I'm still struggling to be mediocre. So that is about it for me in art. But we've got some panelists today who are gifted in some of the various arts, and we're gonna talk to them and get their perspective on things. Who's this lovely lady up here on the right? The Mona Lisa. So the most studied piece of art in history. You can see Leonardo da Vinci, her eyes, no matter where you go, they're looking at you. The perspectives are phenomenal. The smile. I heard he had music playing in the background to keep her smiling. But we actually don't know who she is. There's speculation, but the bottom line is we don't know. If you've never been to the Louvre in France, you need to go. Next time you go to France, visit the Louvre. And the thing that surprised me about the Mona Lisa is how small it is. It's just very small. And you can't get too close because it's cordoned off. So anyway, fantastic art. So let's talk about Christianity and the arts. Let me just get my clicker working here. Here we go. Okay, now, art often depends on the perspective of the artist. Tell me which one of these artists had children. The one on the right or the one on the left? Notice on the left, we've got halos on baby Jesus and on Mary, and he's quietly sleeping. And on the right, there's no halos, and Mary looks tired, like a typical mom, and Jesus is like poking her face. Oh, look at that. That's probably more realistic, by the way, is my guess. Look, so when we talk about a Christian view of the arts, I think the first thing we'd want to say, and probably the most important thing, is God is the ultimate creator. And He created us in His image. And He created us not only to enjoy beauty, but to create beauty. Because we're created in the Imago Dei. We're created in His image. And there is a long history of Christians participating and even being leaders in the arts. We're going to talk about a little bit of that today, and then we're going to have a panel discussion. But one point I want to make is we're going to talk a lot about the fine arts. And I used to think of that word meaning, hoity-toity, big concerts in Bach and Beethoven and famous artists. But really, art is for everybody, right? We're all created in God's image. We all enjoy beauty. We all have some creative capacity within us. It may not be perfect. And so one of the things we want to talk about is the art's for everybody. It's not just those who are supremely gifted. A lot of examples of artists in the Bible. So if you're looking for a biblical theology of art, there isn't really one, There's not a statement that says, thou shalt do art, right? Or something like that. But there's many examples. Bezalel and Oholiab were commissioned by God to help build the tabernacle. And let me read about them here. Exodus 31. The Lord said to Moses, see, I have called by name Bezalel, the son of Uri, son of Hur, of the tribe of Judah, and I have filled him with the Spirit of God, with ability and intelligence, with knowledge and all craftsmanship, to devise artistic designs, to work in gold and silver and bronze and cutting stones for setting and in carving, to work in every craft. And behold, I have appointed with him Oholiab, son of Ahisamach, of the tribe of Dan, and I have given to all able men ability, that they may make what I have commanded you, the tent of meeting and the ark of testimony and the mercy seat and all the furnishings and table and utensils and lampstand and so on and so forth. So we see that right early in the church, early in Israel, God commissioned artists. King David was a musician and composer. Anybody know who did this painting here? That's Rembrandt. What's it a painting of? King David. Yeah, that's actually Saul. King David is there, but he's playing the harp. Right? This is masterful. Look at it. Look at what he does. Look what Rembrandt does. Look at Saul, the way he's looking at David. What does he have in his... David has a harp in his hands. What does Saul have in his hands? A spear, right? He's got this suspicious look on his face. It's just incredible. King David was an artist. Solomon was an architect and builder, and he built the temple for the Lord. In the Psalms, we looked at Psalm 71 today, for the choir director. Many of the Psalms were written to be put to music. So there's a lot of examples where art is important to God's people, to Christian worship, and so forth. Paul, literature. Think about the masterful literature that he wrote. So the Christian influence is not just in the arts. It starts in Scripture, but it flows through all of history, particularly post-Reformation, but even before. So I just want to remind you, because I'm no expert, I'm no art historian. I would have loved to major in that, but I needed a job when I was out. Johann Sebastian Bach. How did Bach sign all his works at the end? SGD, Soli Deo Gloria, to God be the glory. And we know him among many other fantastic musicians. Who did this one? What painting is this? Last Supper, Da Vinci. This is in a church, I think it's in Spain. I'm not sure exactly where it's at. I have not seen this one in person, but there's been this is another one of the most famous Christian or biblically themed paintings out there. There's been a strong Christian influence in architecture. Here we have the Cathedral of Notre Dame in Paris. If you ever go to Paris, you gotta see Notre Dame. And beautiful architecture. Here we have, anyone know what this is? It's the inside of the Hagia Sophia in Istanbul. I'll bet you've been there. Yep, Dan. This was built in 537, I think, 567, 537, 1,500 years ago, essentially. And beautiful church. And then Islam took over. This was the city of Constantinople when it was built. It was a Christian center. A lot of wars happened and so forth. And Islam took over. It's now a museum. It was a mosque for a while. But the interesting thing, if you go there, a lot of the Christian art and influences can still be seen in this beautiful work of architecture. There's been a big Christian influence in literature. And this is pre-printing press, right? Look at the care they took. This is all hand done. The calligraphy, all hand done. Monks would spend years in monasteries just copying the scriptures. So here's a Latin copy of a Christian work, and look at all the little paintings and capital letters done, very fancy script. All of them weren't this fancy, but all of them were done with great care and great attention to detail and great artistry, even if it was just the calligraphy. So there's been a great Christian influence in literature. What's the best-selling book of all time? The Bible, the King James Bible. Here's 4 Bibles. These are my Bibles. I took this picture. The one on the left is a 1607 King James. The one in the middle is a Geneva Bible, which was before the King James. So when Bloody Mary, King Mary of England, was killing all the Protestant ministers, they had to flee to Geneva. When they got to Geneva, they wanted an English Bible, so they commissioned and made one. It's called the Geneva Bible. This is a 1575. It's not the original cover, but the cover's old. The Geneva Bible. And those are both some old King James Bibles. But my point is, the King James Bible is one of the most influential literary works of all time. The Geneva Bible there was the Bible of Shakespeare. Anyone know what the second best-selling book in English was next to the Bible, King James Bible? What was it?
Pilgrim's Progress?
Not Pilgrim's Progress. Good guess. Fox's Book of Martyrs. Told all the story of Christian martyrs, especially the story. And these heavily influenced literature in the English language. And it wasn't just the books themselves, it was the covers often, the bindings. This is a binding from a 1500s Bible. You can see it's Moroccan leather, hand-tooled, fine detail, probably done either in a bookshop or a monastery. Don't know which. But that's a New Testament. That is a Greek New Testament. Many Christian gunsmiths in early America, their works are in museums today. If you go to the Met, the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York, you will see as works of art early American and European muskets and flintlocks that these Christian craftsmen put a lot of attention into putting art around these. And you can see there's a book here called American Art, and it's the story of the flintlocks there. So, just to move this along and get to our discussion, but does art have to be religious to be good? Not necessarily, right? This is a pre-Reformation, pre-Renaissance on the left painting. And you'll see it's typical before the Italian Renaissance and the European Renaissance and before the Reformation. Many of these works, the saints had what around their head? Halos. You can see the halo painted around the head. And they're almost all in service to the church, right? They're almost all biblically themed. And then, after the Reformation, this is if you go to the Rijksmuseum in Amsterdam, you'll see this painting. It's by Vermeer, and he was one of the Dutch masters. And what's different about this one? Ordinary life, exactly. This is just, so one of the things that happened in the Reformation was art was freed up from always having to just be religious in the church. It could be a still life of a bowl of fruit or a picture of a maid pouring milk with table dinner around, just something very, very simple and not necessarily religious. And the same's true today. One of my favorite songs, it ties into this morning's sermon, is John Mayer's Stop This Train. It's not a religious song. I don't know if he's a Christian. I doubt that he is. But it's about, the words go something like, I don't want to see my parents go. They're getting older. They're going to be gone soon. What am I going to do? Dad, tell me. And his father says, John, you'll never stop this train. And the music, the words are phenomenal. Just beautiful artistry. And just about ordinary life, something all of us can relate to in our lives. But post-Renaissance, here's two paintings. The one on the left is medieval. Again, you see the angel. This is St. John and an angel. And so you see the angel and St. John both have halos. The angel has wings. Now, post-Renaissance, this is St. Matthew and an angel. And this is Rembrandt. And what's different about it? Ordinary people. The angel, no wings. Maybe she has wings, you can't really tell. He probably just used a woman he knew as his model. But again, post-Renaissance, art didn't have to always be, even sacred art, these are both biblical themes and biblical pictures, but even sacred art there was more realism. Until you got to the Impressionists, I guess. But okay, Christian art today. Some is excellent, and some not so much. These are not my attempts. But, there is a feeling amongst some that art has taken, especially Christian quote-unquote art, has taken a little bit of a left turn. And I think it's partly because it's been so commoditized for Christian bookstores and that sort of thing. But there's Jesus helping the little girl play baseball better. And Jesus, trying to stop the drug addict from giving himself a shot. And there's one, Jesus has got a tattoo that says Father. There's some not so good art out there too. So we want to talk about that. Panel discussion. We're going to ask the panel to come up right now, and I'm going to ask them some questions. We're going to have a dialogue. If you want to get a cup of coffee, now would be the time to just grab a quick cup of coffee or another fritter. And we'll get going here in just a minute.